When Paul Mercer took in a shivering stray cat from his porch, he thought he was doing a good deed. But this was no ordinary animal. It was the key to a nightmare. Behind the sweet facade of his elderly neighbor, Mrs. Holloway, lay a dark secret. She was once a brilliant geneticist involved in illegal experiments. The cat, known as Subject Gamma, was her final creation, a genetically engineered hybrid designed to spy, hunt, and kill. When Paul takes it to the vet, the horrifying truth is uncovered. Beneath its fur lies evidence of unspeakable tampering. Soon, Paul finds himself entangled in a web of corporate conspiracy, rogue science, and creatures that defy nature. As more twisted hybrids emerge from the shadows, he must confront the terrifying legacy of Nightfall Biotech before the experiments claim him too. Let us know where you are watching from and what time you found this video. Comment and don't forget to subscribe. An evening while it was raining, Paul Mercer discovered a frail cat that was shaking and curled up on his doorstep. Its fur was matted, and its eyes had a peculiar intelligence that was almost identical to those of a human. Paul, a kind person who has a soft spot for strays, did not hesitate. He picked up the trembling creature and made the decision to take it to the veterinarian first thing in the morning. This, however, was not your typical cat. As Paul brought the kitty into Dr. Langford's office the next day, the veterinarian's attitude changed from one of professional serenity to one of pure terror the instant he inspected the cat. Dr. Langford hurried Paul out of the room and phoned the police number while his hands were trembling. He did not utter a single word. Paul remained still in the waiting room, his thoughts racing as he waited. What had the veterinarian observed? After that, he recalled his neighbor. Mrs. Holloway, the kind-hearted old lady who suffered from Alzheimer's disease and had been sent to a nursing facility just a few days previously. Since then, her home had been deserted, although Paul had seen that her front door was slightly ajar the day before. After following his curiosity, he went inside, and that's when he noticed it, the identical cat, but with a modification. All of its motions were very deliberate, and its stare was overly knowledgeable. And suddenly, in the blink of an eye, it had sprinted by him, its body contorting in a manner that caused Paul's skin to unconsciously crawl. Now, as two law enforcement agents hurried into the clinic with a sad expression on their faces, the truth started to come to light. With his words scarcely audible above a whisper, Dr. Langford appeared. To quote Paul, "This is not a cat." Underneath the matted fur, the veterinarian discovered something that was difficult to find. Microscopic tracking devices that had been surgically implanted, and far worse, strands of human hair that had been sewn into its skin. The so-called cat was really a live experiment that was some type of horrific hybrid. Upon further investigation, the authorities discovered that Mrs. Holloway had not only suffered from Alzheimer's disease, but that she had also been a retired geneticist who had been banned for unethical studies many years earlier. Did she relocate to the nursing home all of a sudden? It is a cover-up. Neither of them had left voluntarily. Where is the cat? It did not belong to her. She was being observed by it. During the time that the cops were racing toward Mrs. Holloway's deserted home, Paul's blood began to run cold, mainly due to the fact that he had now recalled that the cat had not been lurking on his doorstep that evening. There has been a wait for it. In addition, if it wasn't really a cat, without that, what else was there? The door of Mrs. Holloway's home was slightly ajar, and the moist odor of mildew clung to the air. The police discovered the house in the exact same condition that Paul had left it in. Nevertheless, when they entered the building, their spotlights shone through the darkness, and they came to the realization that this was more than simply a house. It was a laboratory. The living room had been completely gutted and rebuilt with tables made of stainless steel, the surfaces of which were stained with rust-colored streaks from a long time ago. The walls were lined with glass tanks that were filled with a murky liquid, and some objects that floated within. The forms are little and twisted, and they may have been creatures in the past. On the other hand, Detective Riggs pushed forward with his jaw clenched, while Officer Vasquez muttered something and turned away. After that, they discovered the journals. There were dozens of notebooks neatly arranged in Mrs. Holloway's study, each page of which was covered with rapid-fire handwriting that looped back and forth. The margins were filled with sketches of animals that were a combination of feline and other elements. Over the course of time, the entries became more irregular, ending in a last remark that was chilling. It is common knowledge that I have found the problem. Subjects are prone to instability. However, the company would not let me to stop. I have either managed to get away from them, or they have taken me if you are reading this. Observe the feline. The animal was never only a cat. Paul had a sinking sensation in his gut as he stood at the doorway. Is it the company? After then, there was a gentle, skittering sound coming from the basement. All of the policemen pulled their firearms out. When Riggs was down the steps, the beam of his flashlight shook slightly in his hands, and the stairs groaned as they went down. The air in the basement was dense with the aroma of antiseptic liquid and something metallic, and the temperature was lower. Then there was a cage. The monster that was within jerked its head toward them, and its eyes gave out a faint glimmer in the darkness. In appearance, it was a cat. Its mouth was too large, and its limbs were too lengthy for its body. It made a sound that was not a meow, but rather something that was more like to a whisper. Vasquez made a crooked retreat. What the hell is exactly that? Riggs took a heavy breath in. No matter what it is, at least it is not the only one, given that there were more cages bordering the walls. Not a single thing. Every door is open. Meanwhile, something moved in the shadows of the neighborhood, which was located outside. With a strained breath, Detective Riggs slammed the door to the basement of the building shut. Not words, but something far more dreadful, the beast that was confined in the cage had uttered. An altered and guttural imitation of the sound of human laughing. The crew returned to the station and spent some time reading over Mrs. Holloway's writings. They had a far more negative perception of the reality. Before she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, Dr. Eleanor Holloway worked as a lead geneticist for Nightfall Biotech, a mysterious research company that was hired by the government for biological asset development. What is their objective? With the purpose of developing the ideal surveillance creatures, which are animals that are capable of recording, tracking, and even eliminating targets without being suspected. But the tests did not go as planned. The individuals exhibited changes that were not anticipated, including an increased intellect, the ability to imitate human speech, and a potentially worrisome inclination to imprint on their handlers. It had been Mrs. Holloway's intention to put an end to the endeavor. It was at that point that she started forgetting things. One of the entries in the diary said, "They are dosing me. Alzheimer's disease is not a natural condition. They want me to forget what I have constructed. I won't, however." The failsafe was concealed in Subject Gamma, which is the cat. Paul's blood became ice cold. That is the reason why I had the idea. Meanwhile, news began to stream in from all around the city. An alley was the location where a mailman claimed to have seen a dog with too many teeth eyeing him in the woods. A child's voice could be heard calling for assistance. However, when rescuers came, they found only a maimed fox hiding in the undergrowth with its lips splattered with blood. The company was trying to hide its indiscretions. All through the night, Paul's phone rang with a call from an unknown number. Words were said in a distorted voice. "Her task pertains to you. Simply return it to us, or we will come and get you instead." Someone or something clawed at the door of his dwelling from behind. Not a feline. Not any longer. The sound of screeching at Paul's back door became increasingly louder. It was a purposeful and repetitive sound, as if someone was evaluating the strength of the wood. The odd cat, which he referred to as Subject Gamma, was standing in front of him with unblinking eyes as he shut himself inside the study. Mrs. Holloway's diaries were strewn out in front of him. The electricity then suddenly went off. Paul, armed with a flashlight, tore open the diaries and turned to the last page that could be read. A hasty scribble was produced by Holloway. There is no way to exert control over the subjects, although they may be directed. In its saliva, Gamma contains a retrovirus that has been developed to change Nightfall's genetic code. All of their efforts will be rendered useless by a single bite. On the other hand, it must be delivered to the origin. The former water treatment facility is where they have their headquarters. A portion of it was ripped away. From the kitchen, there was a loud crash. The glass cracked. Something substantial landed with a bang on the flooring. Gamma was seized by Paul, and he made a break for the garage. At precisely the same moment as the rear door shattered inward, his vehicle came to life. Shadows moved in the rearview mirror. They moved too quickly and too fluidly to be considered real. In the midst of the storm, the abandoned water treatment facility stood out like skeletal fingers against the lightning. Its towers had corroded to the point of falling apart. When Paul made his way through the cargo dock, Gamma was clinging to him tightly against his chest. The pupils of the cat were completely dilated, and its body was pulsating with a little warmth that was not normal. Inside, the building was buzzing with the might of illegal activity. The concrete hallways were lined with various pieces of laboratory equipment. The vats are located in the center chamber. Dozens of them, each one containing creatures that were floating about halfway complete. Without Paul's knowledge, a scientist wearing a stained lab coat altered the controls throughout the experiment. Then Gamma let out a hiss. A guy turned around. Is Gamma the subject? It wasn't meant to happen, was it? It was Paul who let the cat go. It moved as if it were liquid, and it sprang onto the face of the scientist. As Gamma's fangs dug into the guy's cheek, the victim let out a violent scream. The alarms began to sound. Converging on the vats were additional hybrids that emerged from the shadows. These hybrids were twisted mockeries of dogs, raccoons, and a fox with an excessive number of joints. The virus known as Gamma was spreading. It was then that the creatures started to convulse, their genetically modified cells beginning to unravel. Suddenly, one by one, they fell to the ground in a quivering heap. The containers broke, causing their contents to spread out on the floor in a deformed state. While Paul was running, the facility began to destroy itself behind him. The incident was classified as a chemical fire in the official report. The hybrids are not mentioned at all. There is no sign of Nightfall Biotech. It is only a shell firm doing nothing. In the evening, Paul is enjoying a drink while sitting on his porch. There is a lack of noise in the area. Overly silent. A weight that he has used to touches his ankle at that moment. Gamma looks up at him with eyes that shine brightly in the darkness. It has regained its fur, but there is something in its eyes that is more pointed. A cacophony of chirps and growls can be heard emanating from the forest. It's not natural. Not any longer. Gamma sighs and purrs when Paul sighs. Guess we're not done yet.